The following podcast has been rated PG. You've been warned. Welcome to the second greatest DC Legends podcast in human history. Well, okay, maybe third. Well, stick around because we're going to have some fun. You know me, I am the Hate Me. And along with my crew, we will talk DCL and everything in between. Ladies and gentlemen, this is WROL After Breakfast. Alright, and before we get started on the episode, I wanted to do our drum roll please for the winner of the Hawk and Dove graphic novel. And it looks like the 21st comment is the winner. Congratulations, and that person is, let's scroll down, count through, 21. And we counted this again just to be sure. It is rayvid, who I recognize that name. I think it's the same person I see in game all the time. Alright, rayvid411, be sure to reach out to me and send me an address to mail this to, and you are the winner. Congratulations, and we plan to do this on a more regular basis. Welcome to WROL Broadcast. I am Hate Mail. With me today we have Biff by Adam West. You gonna say hi?
Hello, how's everyone doing? Yeah.
And we have Espio, who also goes by the surname Sexpio.
You weren't supposed to say that. Good day.
And we decided to start doing
Private.
we decided to start doing a mid-month review type thing where we just kind of go through the characters because we've been doing a little bit different recording schedule. It's hard to do all the individual reworks and new characters separately, so I decided to do a little differently. So we'll quickly gloss over. If you listen to Atlantis After Dark, and if you don't, I highly suggest it because it's hilarious. Me and Biff just finished recording with them their Sunday episode, which will be out a few days before this one. And we talked about the Nightmare event, so won't go into it much except say I'm a huge fan. Loved it. Thought it was really fun. I hope they keep doing it. Biff, you have a quick comment, and then we'll turn it over to Espio on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's been some time since I lost a PvE node, so it was refreshing. It made you think. It made you get together with your alliance. It made you, but it wasn't, impossible once you talk through it.
And what did you think of it, Espio? What gear level
Is
do
this
you...
the Nightmare Challenge?
Yeah, what gear level do you usually play at? You're a gear 11 player, right?
You ruined one of my jokes for later, but yeah, I'm a Gear 11 player.
Okay.
Yeah, I did the whole thing with one team. It was Lex, Owlman, Artemis, Black Flash.
Well, that works pretty well.
Yeah, anytime there was an Azrael, I could use Lex, Black Flash, and Owlman. They all have twos that don't deal damage, so I could stall until Artemis could get a turn and stun him. And by the time Harley shows up, like, halfway through a round, like, way, even if she enrages everyone, they've all got a billion hit chance up, so it doesn't matter. She just gets destroyed.
Yeah, it was I thought it was a fun event. I'm looking forward to what they do with it in the future. They definitely went the right direction, is all I will say. And if you aren't a high-level gear player and you're frustrated by the event, it can be something you work towards. And most low-level players that are lower gear level, they tend to not care as much about rebirth crystals, so that's towards the end of the event, so you can avoid not having to finish the whole thing. At least the blue crystals are the blue hope rings are towards the beginning.
Yeah, I just did it for fun, for the challenge. The rewards are honestly kind of irrelevant to me.
Yeah. I always want rebirth crystals, so.
I have like over 100. I'll never use all of them.
And so, let's move on to
another one of those.
Let's move on to the new characters. And Biff, I wanted to get your take on Dove, even though we just had an episode about Hawk and Dove, but I definitely want to hear your thoughts since you love the evasions.
Yeah, so I've made a commitment recently to go 100% evasions, no matter what the meta comp on the other side. So I've gotten a chance to use her a lot over the last few weeks. Very good evasion char. My only issue with her is figuring out where her place is. Because, I run a tremendous amount of Batgirl lead. I tried to do all three affinities in all my evasion comps, and it's really hard to justify sitting down either Harley Quinn or Cassie for Dove. I like Dove a lot. Part of the challenge with her, a lot of her best attributes are one turn, which makes it difficult. She to me is kind of the opposite of Cassie. Cassie is very good at the beginning of a fight, whereas Dove is very good if the match plays itself out into a longer fight, because she gets to that point where she's unbeatable, near the end, as she keeps stacking and stacking and stacking evasions, kind of like how Cassie does it on the front end. So she helps out Impulse a lot. I've been running a lot of Batgirl, Eclipso, Impulse, and Dove. That's one of my favorite comps. Also, having some fun with Siren as well, dusting her off, because once she gives her some evasions and Siren gets people bleeding, she can get going too. And we all know Siren, not part of the current meta, but is a bear if she gets going.
Yeah, and we also know that Siren is incapable of evading with any less than approximately 20 evasion up, so Dove should help. I would say on Dove, she does seem very, very strong. I agree that it's kind of difficult to bring her over Cassie, but at the same time, she's kind of worse than Cassie to deal with, because the thing is with Cassie is you can wait and eventually her invis will fall off and she'll stop gaining evasions. But Dove, you just, unless you can hit her, she's just going to keep gaining them with counterattacks. So, yeah, she can just go on forever. Do you have any thoughts on Hawk? I wish I had more to say on Dove, but I'm still in the process of gearing her. She does seem very promising so far, though.
So you're asking me on Hawk?
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at Hawk, quite frankly. Since I've been going to 100% evasions of late, my focus was really on getting Dove going.
Fair.
I looked at his kit briefly, and I think I have him L1 right now, but really haven't played one match with him, quite frankly. Right.
Yeah, he looks really interesting to me. I have a feeling that he's going to be too slow to be particularly viable in endgame PvP. But he looks like a lot of fun, and I also think he's going to be very, very valuable in the raid. Reason being, he applies agility downs, buff immunity, turn meter down, and stuns. He has one of his moves is a guaranteed stun, I think is 2, don't quote me on that, and he has like an 80% chance when fully ringed out to stun a random enemy at the end of his turn. So if you're playing against a raid boss where there's only one enemy and that's the boss, and every time Hawk takes a turn there's an 80% chance they're going to get stunned, and he's just putting tons of turn meter down and agility downs on them, he's going to be like Riddler but on crack, basically, and with a 5 times damage multiplier, so I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, we're still waiting on Hate Mail to return, but...
did we lose him?
Talk about Beetle. Yeah, he said he had to step away for a few minutes.
Oh, okay. Well then, we are taking over WROL Broadcast.
Yes, this is my show now. I did arrange to have Hate Mail assassinated. You weren't supposed to find out until afterwards, but what can I do? Okay, I'll allow you to start on Beetle because I have quite the rant prepared. I had to actually set down bullet points because I rambled so much that I needed to make sure I didn't do that. Otherwise, I wouldn't stop talking for approximately 30 minutes. Off you go.
Okay, well, I am going to let you rant, and I can tell you why. So I have pretty much the entire roster L4 to RB5, maxed G11. I have 15 characters that are level 60 gear 10 that are just for my up, and away, slowly over a course of time. And Blue Beetle is one of those for me. I just wasn't as impressed with his rework on paper as, to bring him up. So I would I default to you on the Blue Beetle discussion.
Oh boy. Okay, well, you see, funny thing about that is that I also have him at Gear 10, and this is the part where I'm supposed to say, oh, I can't really comment for Endgame, I only have him at Gear 10, and Heyman goes, I thought you were a Gear 11 player, and I go, you don't need to know that. So,
Which I
Heyman's
accepted
back.
now.
his original
I'm
kit.
back.
Let's start with his original kit. We need a history lesson. We need to understand where this modern day tragedy began. So originally, he was an anti-shield character. That was his niche. He was against shields. And one of the biggest things about his gear set is that he has an incredibly high crit value, but an incredibly low crit chance. And his 2 used to give him strength ups and crit chance ups. So, back in the day, he came out something like, I think it was 5 months or so after... 4 or 5 months after Arceus. And obviously the game is still pretty new, so you had a lot of people using Hal as their leader, because he was one of the starting characters. So you have a lot of Hal and Arceus teams, and anytime they do anything, Beetle has a pretty solid chance to start gaining strength and crit chance ups, and then he does his AoE, and he obliterates everyone. He was good. I honestly think he was good. I would have put him in like a B tier back then. You had to think twice about bringing in shielders against him, which is what he's supposed to do, right? As a niche counter, you're supposed to think twice about bringing in that niche. Now, what they did in his first rework is they took away those crit chance ups on his 2, and they gave him agility ups instead, which do nothing, because he will still die if you sneeze on him. He has no health, no defense, no nothing. He is a completely just useless sack of... Anyway, so... what happened with the new rework? Okay. So all they had to do to make him good, okay, is give him a stat boost and bring back the crit chance ups on his 2, and he would have been like, okay, like decent, like C tier at worst.
Or
right?
change his gear set. That's honestly all they needed.
I honestly kind of like the gear set he has at the minute because of the fact that it gives him that insanely jacked crit value. But yeah, potentially that could help. So what did they do instead? Well, you'll be delighted to hear that they did none of that. So, to begin with, it's terrible character design lore-wise. So something that I like about this game is that generally speaking, a character's abilities matches their abilities in the comics and their personality. But this just makes zero sense because Beetle is, I guess, he has a suit of armor that can adapt to situations, so it sort of makes sense that he should be able to counter multiple things. Kind of like Vixen, but that's if they were trying to make him like Vixen, first of all, why would you try to make Vixen but worse? And second, no, that's not what they did. So, where did they take him? His kit does not match his character at all. If you have ever watched the Brave and the Bold show or played Injustice 2, you will know that the character Jaime Reyes is absolutely... He is a small boy. He is an innocent, sweet child. He is probably the superhero most likely to faint at the sight of blood. So the idea of him fueling himself off ally deaths is one of the most hilarious things I think I've ever seen them throw into a story. Like, I'm sorry. I feel like if an ally dies, he should just have a 0-turn doom applied to him. He just faints.
That would be hilarious. You know, they could make him super powerful. That would be actually kind of fun if you had a character that was really
that would
powerful.
Be pretty funny, yeah.
Like, he's almost OP, but then as soon as you lose a teammate, then they instantly die or becomes super ineffective.
They can call it faint at the sight of death.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're going to essentially take a hatchet to the bloodied corpse of Blue Beetle with this rework, what's the point of that? What's the point of making him make no sense? He must do something good, right? No, he does nothing good. So, he can't enable himself. As I said, he fuels himself off allied deaths, and what I mean by that is he gains some shield, and if you care enough to put a legendary point into it, which I don't see why you would, as you kind of never want your allies to die, He will also gain some speed-ups, which do nothing for him. They give nothing to his kit. They just make him slightly faster so that he can take more turns where he does nothing. So, why would you want him shielded, you ask? Well, his basic attack, which actually deals decent damage if it crits, although good luck making it crit, because as I said, he can't enable his own crits anymore. They took it out with his first rework, and they didn't add it back in this one. His basic attack will strike twice if he is shielded. So unless you have someone else there to shield him, the only way he can gain shield is if you throw his teammates under the bus, so that he can hit slightly harder for a couple of turns. Now, loading up DCL toolkit real quick so I can refresh myself on his kit. I would strongly recommend anyone listening to this to not go and read it yourself. It's quite a painful experience. So, the main thing that he is designed to counter now is speed-ups, I think. It's complicated. So, whenever an enemy gains any speed-ups, Blue Beetle has a 75% chance to gain 15% turn meter and 15% shield. Okay, so that's another way he can in fact gain shield if enemies gain speed-ups. Does anyone see a problem with this? Most of the characters that use speed-ups don't gain them actively. You could say maybe he's designed to counter Black Flash, but Black Flash will only actively gain a speed-up, and remember, passives contra passives.
I think he was
Black Flash uses his basic.
I think he was designed to counter Ocean Master, who's definitely a major problem in the meta right now.
I am going to hurt you. I had that in my notes to mention that we finally have an Orm counter.
Thank God.
You beat me to it. Okay, so 75% chance to use his 2, which again gives him strength and agility ups and some turn meter when this is triggered. So now this would be okay if he was designed to counter like speedsters, I guess, because you've got Barry going off and he's going off at light speed, and it means that Beetle gains enough turn meter to intercept him, and he's got all of these buffs, and he stops Barry in his tracks. I don't understand why you change him to that from an anti-shielder when the anti-shield niche was perfectly fine. And honestly, when you consider the fact that we have Hal, Arcus, and now Azrael and Artemis in the meta, that would be useful. You can't deny that would be useful. But no, they got rid of that. So his AoE deals damage to enemies and will purge all immunities and awareness from all the enemies if you put a legendary point into it, which is decent. Unironically, this is quite possibly the only thing that he's good for. The problem is, while he is mildly fast, I don't think he's fast enough to really use this at the start of a match to take out tons of awareness and immunities before the rest of your team goes. So I really don't understand what the point of this is, unless you give him like Red Robin True Sight or something, which is just silly at that point. He will also purge 3 buffs, yes, 3 whole buffs to a single target if they have a mystical affinity. And no, that's not purging 3 buffs to mystic enemies. No, it's specifically the one you select, and only if they have an affinity can you purge. And I cannot stress this enough. 3 whole buffs. So, you might think, wait, mystical affinity? Making a mystic an anti-mystic? That's kind of weird. Yeah, it is. His basic attack also deals 80% additional damage if the target has a mystical affinity. So, his niche has gone from anti-shield, which would be broad and useful, to anti-speed up, but specifically only when enemies actively gain speed ups because passives can't trigger passives, which is essentially useless, and anti-mystic, which is a niche so broad that it isn't a niche and is in fact used by approximately a third of the roster of this game. Yes, every single physical character feels the anti-mystic niche, and you can't see, but I'm doing air quotes right now. So, he's essentially designed to counter Orm. We have an Orm hard counter, and I don't know why, and he doesn't even do that well. This feels like a joke. I'm genuinely wondering who on the dev team despises Beetle, has such a fiery rage inside their heart for this character, to the point where every time they see him, their blood boils over to the temperature of the average furnace on the planet Easmold. I cannot comprehend what was going through the developers' heads when they looked at this and went, yeah, this is good. This kid'll work. This'll do things. I'm sorry I've been ranting, but I'm just in complete disbelief. Now, I could say, oh, this is terrible. This is completely unacceptable. How are they still designing kits this bad, this late into... But I actually think it might be deliberate. Like, it's funny. It's funny. I'm laughing. He's one of my favorite characters. I should be upset, and I'm laughing. And I don't know what to tell you other than that.
After listening to you, I was debating whether I was going to continue to vote him trash tier or maybe bump him to a C.
Oh, back the truck up, baby.
But I think the
Just give
truck
it to
does
me.
need to be, it needs to be backed up because it's every time I use him, I'm like, wow, he's so bad. He's so bad. And in Siege, he has a little bit of use because none of the bonus tunes AoE purge except him, so it kind of gave him this false, he might be okay feeling.
Right.
But then he doesn't kill anyone, doesn't do any damage, even against Mystics. Which I like the concept of a character that does just as much damage to a green as they would a blue. I don't mind. Like that's not a terrible idea. Except
I feel like he
doesn't.
deals less damage to greens though, and he doesn't even deal damage to blue.
Right, and that's the problem.
Unless he crits, at which point it's okay damage, but he can't enable himself. This is the biggest problem with his kit. He needs shields and crit chance ups, and he can't give himself any of those things unless an enemy actively gains a speed up or an ally dies, and even then he can only give himself shields. He still cannot guarantee his own crits.
But even
Can't
if you run
enable
him with
his own kit.
Steppenwolf and Owlman, his damage for having a million crit ups still isn't that exciting. I mean, it's okay, like you can kill people, but it's not any more than an above average damage dealer. And
No, I had him wipe out my Arcus once. It was the first time I faced him,
Right.
and I was like, wow, this character might not be half bad. And because I saw that one crit hit,
yeah.
but now I'm glad that he is still one of my 15 gear a day G10 tunes, and I did not take him up after hearing that.
Just, I mean, Miss Martian applies shields to allies at the start of their turn, and extra shields to Titan allies. I believe he qualifies as a Titan. Yeah, he does. So if you pair him with Miss Martian, he can at least start double tapping people, but it's still only going to be a double love tap, you know. So I really don't see a point. Potentially, if you have an enemy team that is somehow going to start the match with like 10 awarenesses and debuff immunity, maybe, but it's really not going to do much. Now, something that annoys me personally when people complain about things in games is when they just say stuff is bad, but they don't give you any kind of ideas on how they do it better or how they fix things. So I want to run you through real quick, because I know I've been speaking a lot, just a rough idea of how I would attempt to fix Beetle. So the first thing I would do is I would completely reverse pretty much every single aspect of this rework, other than the idea of making his basic double tap. I like that, but I'd have to think about what would cause that to happen. So I would return him to his anti-shield state. And what I would propose is, you know how Bane can out-of-turn attack on any turn? Not any ally turn, not any enemy turn, any turn. What I would say is, so long as there is a shielded enemy, so long as any enemy has shield, he has like a 60% chance at the end of every single turn to buff. So if you're using like Azrael, just by virtue of your Azrael existing, Beetle is ramping like crazy, right? From all the turns that your team or their team is taking. And I would make it so that at the end of every shielded enemy's turn, he passively uses his AoE. So he keeps ramping, and the moment you take a turn with a shielded character, he just obliterates you. And if you're playing as Azrael, you just had your debuff immunity passively removed. I feel like that would really help him. And then if he made it so that his basic double tapped if the enemy was shielded, that would also help. So he can enable his own crits, and so long as enemies are shielded, he will keep ramping to higher and higher damage levels. And I mean, like hypothetically, if an Arcus issued challenge, what would happen is they'd issue a challenge on someone, then at the end of that turn, Beetle would probably buff, and then after that, he would be guaranteed to use his AoE, which would remove the death immunity and debuff immunity from Arcus, so he'd be like a solid Arcus counter. You see how this character I'm describing would at least have like some place in the meta and potentially be like a B tier character, but no, they did this.
Well, it'd be super useful against Azrael because it would purge his debuff immunity.
Yeah, passively. The only problem is, I mean, he'd still, in my mind, still be pretty squishy. You could potentially make it so that his 2 also gives him an awareness, but then you get into the idea of, well, how much is he supposed to protect himself from, like, literally everything, and how much should you still have to build around him a bit for protection? I don't mind on that front. I wouldn't be opposed to his 2 giving him an awareness, for instance. So yeah, I could see it going either way, but you would at least think, ooh, do I want to bring shields here? Or if I do, I should probably take in like Shiva or something to take him out quick, right? He'd have a role.
Unfortunately, I think Beetle is pretty dead because I don't see
Yeah.
him getting reworked again for a long time.
Yeah, same. That's the saddest part.
Well, this was the third, right?
No, this is the second rework. I'm
Second,
pretty sure.
okay.
Pretty sure.
But I like your ideas because anything that removes, Azrael's debuff immunity would be good for me.
Yeah. He'd also make you think twice about bringing in Artemis because she crits like crazy, and every single time she crits, she shields her entire team, which means that you're going to have like an AoE going off every time you breathe.
Actually, I don't know if I like that because I use a lot of these shielding characters. I'm just realizing. So
Yeah, but he'd be a pain. You'd have to actually build around him and think. I mean, which is why, again, I say potentially, him having like awareness on his 2, for instance, might be a bit much. I understand that the kit I'm describing would be quite strong. I'm open to feedback on this, but you can see that the ideas that I'm giving would at least be better than this. I feel like there's a chance that in the year 2023, we're going to be in a meta where all of the top tier characters are mystic characters who actively gain speed ups, and if you bring in a physical character against them, they get deleted. And by that, I don't mean that they get one shot. I mean they get physically permanently deleted from your roster. And then we're going to go, oh, so this is what Beetle was for. But until that day, back the truck up. I yield my time. Just don't make me speak anymore. I've done enough.
Did you guys touch on Deathstroke yet at all?
No, we haven't. By all means, go ahead. Please, someone other than me speak.
I am unfortunately starting to get low on time, but I will say that Deathstroke I'm pleasantly surprised with him. When I first started playing with him, I was like, oh, even after killing people, he doesn't really kill people, but his turn meter manipulation is surprisingly good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's his basic. That's what you bring him for, to just keep taking turns and just keep basicking people.
And he's extremely good in Siege for the fact that he's a red that you can bring, even if there's a strong amount of greens, because he can hold his own. He does not die easily at all.
Well, watch out. If they bring in the newly S-tiered Blue Beetle, he might purge all of those awarenesses with his AoE, and then you're in deep trouble, my friend.
And you do kind of realize that silence is better than you give it credit for whenever you're...
Oh yeah, silence. Silence is really solid. It also has the bonus of I don't think anyone benefits from being silenced. There are characters that benefit from being enraged, but no one really benefits from being silenced, which is kind of strange, since silence actually gives the player more control. So I'd rather have a Grundy that silences himself and deals more damage when silenced than enraged, because at least then I could choose, right?
Yeah.
Who I hit. But
there's a handful of characters.
No one really benefits from it.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there's a few characters that you prefer they didn't use their basic, but overall, I mean, you don't want Arcus to use this 2, you don't want Black Flash to use this 2 or 3.
True.
So.
I mean, Dove, for example, if she was silenced, that's what's going to ramp her up. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
True. But what I mean is there's no one who deals extra damage when silenced or can't mix when silenced,
right.
like Grundy or Wonder Girl or whoever else.
I'm surprised that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I've never really thought about it. But yeah, so silence is like Enrage, but without accidentally unleashing Wonder Girl or Grundy or anyone else who benefits from being enraged. Guy Gardner, God forbid.
Ares.
Biff, what do you think of Deathstroke? I know you're mainly an evasion guy, but...
Yeah, I mean, I've just poked around with him, as you said, in Siege, as really just a character that can stay alive. So I haven't paid too much attention, but I can tell you I haven't lost him in Siege. So, from that perspective, he's been useful, certainly a lot more useful than what they made him after the incident from a little ways back.
Yeah, I think they hit the nail on the head. They didn't make him OP. They made him... If you like Deathstroke, you can easily run him. He's solid character all the way around.
And I'm glad they took leader away and, gave him that flexibility, because it's so hard these days with, to really justify that leader spot with so many good ones.
Plus, he never struck me as a leader anyway. Just his lore.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I mean, don't get me wrong, Slade, in the comics, he's a pretty good tactician and everything, but that is kind of bizarre. I feel like he does work best as a one-man army type character. You just bring along because you paid him, you know.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we wrap this up?
No, I'd say, as I said about Dove, good character. Just try to figure out where to get her fit in to your comps, because there are just so many good red evasion characters. But she definitely has her spot.
Final words, Espio?
Yeah, it just occurred to me we never went over Legendary order, and I think that's because the moment you take Beetle up to Legendary, you've already lost. However, if I had to give him one, I would say 3, 1, 4, 2, 5. So that's all immunities and awareness purged with his AoE, then attack twice with his basic if he is shielded, then a chance to buff when an enemy gains speed ups.
What did you say?
The agility ups, and then last is the speed ups when an ally dies, because you don't want that to happen.
Can you repeat that for me? I'm going to update my leader.
3, 1, 4, 2, 5. That's my order.
Okay, I'm going to put that because I'm going to defer to your wisdom on him. I'm going to put Espio's order. All right.
I would hardly describe the pure unadulterated rant that you have had to bear witness to for the past 40 minutes as wisdom, but whatever floats your boat, I guess.
It's good to have passion.
Yes. Well, we definitely appreciate both of you coming on. None of the other WRLers looked like they could make it today, so appreciate you both coming on to do this mid-month, and that is it. We will go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you all for listening.
Hi everyone, this is Determined Lemon. Thank you for listening to this episode of WROL Broadcast. Please help us out by becoming a patron and getting access to special patron-only shows. Just go to patreon.com/WROL Broadcast. We also have DC face masks at our store. Please be sure to check them out. Shh, crikey. We don't want to spook him. We've spotted that rare and elusive DP-0427.